We all live in the midst of a vast, cold, dark, and unfeeling universe. I, in particular, live at 1319 Greenleaf Street. In this house, there is a room. Well, let's see if I can show you. We have to go up this alley, and then up there is a window, the highest one, you see, in a gable. And under that gable is a spot where my daughters played, and now my granddaughters play with dolls. And it gives onto an attic room where I can work and, most importantly, meditate. I started meditating as a young man, and at this point in my life, I do it every day, and the practice has made me a great expert. You will see just how expert I have gotten. I first got interested in meditation around 1972. When I fell for the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and his branded product of transcendental meditation. I went through some cursory training and was given a mantra to repeat to myself, a meaningless Sanskrit word that I must on no account ever share with anyone else. My mantra was,
Rabba labba 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 ding dong, rabba labba 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 ding.
no, it was shring. Shring. Actually, the guy who trained me made it sound like one syllable, shring, and that's how I always said it. It's a meaningless word, they said, but to a very verbal person, like me, there's no such thing as a meaningless word. First of all, it made me think of string, and then it made me think of shrink, and then made me think of my own associations that my racing mind would attach to it. And far from clearing my mind, the mantra only cluttered it up more. I had enough distractions as it was. Anyway, I stopped meditating in 1975 when I entered Harvard Business School. This seemed subculturally correct. 30 years later, in 2005, I took up meditation again after I went with my oldest daughter to Dharamsala, the spot in India where the Dalai Lama took refuge from the Chinese communists who'd taken over Tibet, and still lives today in a community of monks who meditate like crazy. The Dalai Lama recommends as a mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, which is not meaningless, and according to him, it is very good to recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, but while you are doing it, you should be thinking on its meaning. Okay, a mantra with a meaning. The only trouble is, here is the meaning of Om Mani Padme Hum. I bow to the jewel at the lotus flower of the heart. To say this is its meaning gives a new meaning to the word meaning. So I stuck with shring, but soon enough stopped meditating again, partly because a house with 3 children is completely incompatible with nirvana, the liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth, and partly because I had no clue how to get to nirvana. Also, I found that 2 glasses of wine a day really enhanced more than dinner. I found wine to be transcendental medication. More years went by, till in 2020, my old Yale roommate told me he was meditating and strongly recommended a book by a Princeton alum called Why Buddhism is True, which cites neurological, psychological, and evolutionary support for meditation, but sets aside reincarnation and karma. In other words, Buddhism is true, except the parts that aren't. And I couldn't disagree. So I set aside Buddhism and, to pass the time in the pandemic, took up meditation again. I also took it up to please my wife. The fact was that aging had made me somewhat like this, and rather often like this, and had raised my blood pressure a bit. And I still couldn't figure out how to reach nirvana, i.e. the liberation from dukkha, suffering, and samsara, the cycle of birth and rebirth, through the elimination of raga, greed, desire, dvesha, anger, and moha, delusion. and thus ultimately the realization of non-self and emptiness. But meditation lowered my blood pressure and made me calmer and, if possible, even nicer. And then one day, lost in spiritual contemplation of the higher states of existence, I thought, fuck this mantra shit. There's a whole other approach. The Zen tradition of meditation. And those guys say non-self and emptiness is great, but the real deal is satori, the experience of awakening or apprehension of the true nature of reality. And to get there, you don't need no stinking mantras. So, assuming the adjective of satori is sartorial, I really got into it and started kneeling. This brought me not only continued low systolic diastolic readings, but also a final, perfect acceptance of my indelible inability to be Japanese, or Indian, or spiritual, or anything that I am not. So now I just try to make meditation an extension of myself as I am in my real life and see what happens. I will keep thinking and not stop thinking. I know I will not rise outside of myself, beyond my life, past my boundaries, outside material existence with its suffering, which is good, because all this detachment comes down to negation, and let's face it, prohibition. Meditative practice, as taught, actually reminds me of the prohibitive social world I was raised in, not to mention the negative religion I was raised in. I can't help but see no self and emptiness as denials of life. In other words, samples of death. And death is not where I'm at. I know that saying Om Mani Padme Hum can lead you to rise above yourself, but I honestly have no desire to rise above joy or love or desire or the many things that make me alive. So what do I get from meditation? Besides readings of 115/70 or 48 beats per minute, I get a lot. During and after meditation, I have a chance to look at myself with humility, meaning see myself as I truly am, nothing more, nothing less, in the midst of this vast universe, a flawed but well-meaning creature, grateful to his maker for life, to the many people who have helped him and loved him, and I have a chance to be, for 20 minutes, just to be. And who knows? This way, my heart may last a while, and maybe give me enough time that with enough practice, I may someday evolve and get where the masters have gotten. Gaily the Guru touched his sitar as he was hastening home to a star.